Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Wyrzykowska. I'm an AIJA president, and I welcome you to the webinar called Toolkit for a Change, which is thought as a series of webinars. This one will be about a sustainable law firm. But before passing the voice to our dear sustainability officer, Dino Serafini, and his guests, I will speak about AIJA in general in order to introduce you to our dear association. So AIJA is an international association of young lawyers below 45 years old. And we are in a global network associated to cooperate professionally, to develop professionally, to share our knowledge and know-how. And we exist already for 60 years. This year, we celebrate our 60th birthday. We are based in Brussels in Belgium. Currently, we have almost 4,000 individual members and 50 collective bar association members. More than 700 of law firms of all sizes is being represented by our members. And it's important to mention that although we are an international association of young lawyers, actually 65 of our members is in leadership positions in their law firms. We have 21 scientific commissions. Thus, whatever area of law you practice, you will always find an appropriate commission for yourself to get involved. This is the list. Other than that, we have also more universal initiatives like AIJA Women Network, events organized by our dear sustainability officer or our diversity officer. We have also our Human Rights Committee, which is also organizing webinars, events, and in-person events also during our conferences, and also a lot of initiatives aiming to collect funds for charity. We have as well the Legal Tech Board, which is consisting of 3 people who keeps our members up to date on legal tech solutions and latest developments and trends in this respect. We should mention about upcoming events, or actually during events. Currently online, other than webinars within a series of Toolkit for a Change, we have AIJA Academy, which is already ongoing. It's important to mention that the funds collected through registrations to that event, we will donate to Ukraine. Other than online events, we also have a series of in-person events, which you should check on our webpage. The highlights this year are the half-year May conference in Gothenburg, and of course, our annual Congress in Singapore, which will take place this August. Anna, can we go back to the slide? Other than half-year May conference, we also have a half-year autumn conference in November in Edinburgh. This is important to you because it will be devoted to ESG, especially focusing on environmental matters. And other than that, we have a series of seminars which are organized by our different commissions. So you will see that we will have a seminar, for instance, the next seminar is in April in Naples. This one is organized, for example, by our real estate and insolvency commissions, but we also have a series of M&A seminars. A trade commission and antitrust commission is joining forces to welcome us in Bologna. And you can check the rest of our events on our webpage, or here you can see them on this slide. We support Ukraine. We have invited all Ukrainian lawyers to join us this year for free. So we have waived the membership fees for them. And also, as I just mentioned, we want to nevertheless to stay connected with them. That's why we have offered that they can also register themselves for free for the AIJA Academy, and all the registrations that we will collect, all the funds that we will collect from the registrations will be donated to Ukraine. But also we have appointed the special task force, which is engaged in helping Ukraine, especially Ukrainian lawyers finding themselves in different jurisdictions. We will get back on that and initiatives that will be proposed soon. Those are AIJA contacts. So except for myself, there's also François Barret, our immediate past president, Moritz Maurer, first vice president, and our dear association manager, Victoria Kerry. And there's, of course, our general contact details. Please don't be a stranger. Feel free to contact us whenever you have any questions on our activity and you want to get yourself involved. Without further ado, let us start our webinar, which is very, very important, I must say, also for me personally, as this year we are discussing the future of the legal profession, and obviously sustainability and ESG is something that is of a big, big importance. Dino, I pass the voice to you.
Thank you, Anna, for the introduction. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Dino Serafini. As Anna said, I'm the Sustainability Officer of AIJA. I'm also a member to the corporate transactional team at Arend & Medernach in Luxembourg. And it is really a pleasure for me to welcome you to today's workshop, The Journey Towards a Sustainable Law Firm. This workshop is a session of a mini-series composed of 2 sessions under the title Toolkit for Change. What we want to do is to explore, discuss, and learn the changes that law firms need to become sustainable, inclusive, and ultimately just. The next session will be hosted next week, April 13, by the AIJA's Diversity Officer, Francesca Salerno, and will be titled, Why Do We Need More Diverse and Inclusive Law Firms? Where's the bargain? I will share the link in the chat. Talking about the chat, we have enabled Q&A. We will be collecting questions throughout the workshop for a discussion after the panelist presentations. Today's discussion is really in sync with the current conversation that is stemming from specifically 2 elements that I can think of. The first one is the recent publication by the European Commission of the long-awaited proposal for a directive on corporate sustainability due diligence. This proposal is aimed at tackling human rights and environmental impacts across all the value chain. The other element is the report published by the IPCC last Monday, assessing what we can still do to limit the risk for ecosystems deriving from climate change. What the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change concluded is that we need to act now or never. It is not too late, but now it is the time for businesses, people, and ultimately the planet to change their models to ensure a future for everyone. So business must change now, and law firms have basically 3 options. The first one is leading by example. They can be fast followers or the client's moving business models, or if none of the 2 before is met, they will be excluded from the value chains, and ultimately their business model will be disrupted. So how to avoid this? Well, you are in the right place. And we are joined today by 4 brilliant speakers that they will bring their first-hand experience to the table. And moderating the session is Robert Van Biemen. Sorry, Robert. Hi, Robert. Robert is a partner at Venturis Consulting based in Amsterdam, joining us from the islands today in Scotland, if I may disclose that. Robert is a strategy advisor for law firms. He has a focus on the Benelux market, but a competence at 360 degree. And he specializes in advising market positioning, strategic reviews, strategic formulation, and strategic business planning. Robert started his career as a lawyer. He was a corporate and restructuring lawyer. And then after years of dedicated studies and experience gained on the field, moved into strategy consulting. For those of you today that are already AIJA active member, you will remember Robert at least from his speech as keynote speaker at Dubai's Althea conference last week. Apart from all his background, Robert has been invited today here because he has recently co-authored a book titled "Building the Sustainable Law Firm," which is echoing what we're discussing today, where we have a deep dive on what is ESG, what are the actions to be taken by law firm, with a very interesting and promising case studies and a series of examples of policy and strategies. The book will be soon available. It's being printed, if I understand correctly. And if Robert allows, there will be a link also to the publication in the chat. So Robert will be moderating the session, and the speakers are Maître Alissa Pellatin. Bonjour, Alissa. Alissa is founder and managing partner of AMP Avocat in Paris. She is a member of the Paris, California, and Washington, D.C. bars, and she is a lawyer that wants to change the world. She is passionate about social enterprise law. She advises entrepreneurs and companies of the social and solidarity economy, and generally mission-oriented companies, both in France and internationally. Alissa has also other hats, one of which is very relevant here. She is a member of the board of directors of B-Lab France. B-Lab is the entity that provides the label of B-Corp. We will deep dive into this. Co-founder of the ESELA network and president of the Impact Lawyers Association. Joining from the UK is Kat Berry. Hello, Kat. Kat is head of impact at Mishcon de Reya. For an audience of legal practitioner, the firm needs no introduction, of course, as one of the most prominent law firms globally. Kat is responsible for the group's impact strategy and ESG portfolio. She started her career as litigator at Herbert Smith Freehills before working in the non-for-profit sector and then joining Mishcon. Kat, thank you so much for joining us today. Last but definitely not least is our Emiliano Giovine. Emiliano is senior associate at RP Legal and Tax in Turin. Ciao, Emiliano. AIJA's friends had the opportunity of benefiting from Emiliano's experience already in our podcast, the Spotlight podcast on the sustainable legal practice. You will have a link also for this in case you missed it. Emiliano is a member of the Impact Economy, International Cooperation, Sustainability and Human Rights Practices at his firm. He deals with charities, social entrepreneurship, impact economy, NGOs, non-for-profit entities, is an expert in the field and has recently gained extensive experience in the process of getting through the certification process for B-Corps. So we have Alissa representing a French boutique firm and having also the hat of B-Lab. Emiliano, as I mentioned, who is a member of a firm of 100 lawyers. Kat, representing Mishcon, that has over 900 employees and 500 lawyers and offices in London, Hong Kong, and Singapore. And we basically have here the opportunity of presenting you with a tailored discussion. We didn't want to provide you with a set of guidelines with one size fits all approach, but really wanted to know who you are and then have the experience for all possible backgrounds that you're bringing to the table. So to help our tailoring exercise, we have created a pool. It's aimed at understanding who you are. So the first question is to understand what is your role and seniority. And if you work in a law firm, that will be the first three options, in-house, or the third one, other, in which case, please specify in the chat what is your role. Thank you. I'll give you a few seconds still to reply. Okay. Secondly, we want to understand what, okay, perfect. We have a lot of partners. We have a lot of others, looking forward to know that. And we are growing as associates and seniors, but we'll be there. Thank you very much. The second question is aimed at understanding what is the size of your organization. And you see the options on the screen. You normally know the answer to this one, but try a close guess if not. Okay, so we have 50% of, let's say, small-sized firms. Mid-sized firms are 33%, and larger firms are a total of 17%. Perfect. Last question is where you're from. Where is your company located, and references to the headquarters, but also to your, sorry, not to the headquarters, but to your location specifically. It's lunchtime in Europe, so I guess we are facilitated by this. The attendance is a bit tricked by this. And the winner is Europe. But welcome to our friends from Central and South America, including Caribbeans, and Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa. Welcome. Okay, so we have set the ground for the discussion. You know who we are, we know who you are, and Robert, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dino. So, don't buy this jacket. Perhaps you are familiar with this ad. It's an ad from the New York Times in 2011. I will come back to it in a few seconds. So today, societies, economies, and businesses are facing undisputable challenges. Dino already mentioned it. Global warming, growing nationalism, social unrest, regulatory constraints, financial crisis in the past, perhaps even a new financial crisis comes up, a global pandemic, and very recently the war in Ukraine. And while mankind has always shown its ability to address and solve big tasks, the threat of global warming has put a new urgency in all of these global debates. In its Agenda 2030, from 2015, the United Nations and 193 signing countries committed themselves to pursuing the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, which address the aforementioned challenges and more. Similarly, the next generation of businesses needs to adapt to these realities, and they need to do it quickly, if not to lose their license to operate. The future is not a linear continuation of the past. New business models must be radically different, reconnecting economic and societal benefits. Drivers for sustainability come from all sources, also for law firms. Client demand, lawyers and employees' expectations, pressure from NGOs, international frameworks, regulations. Dino already mentioned it. The EU is very, very busy with implementing lots of regulation with regard to sustainable financing, value change, and it has a direct impact. Input from scientists and experts. Governments cannot act in isolation, and companies cannot bear the burden for making our world sustainable on their own. Instead, all actors, including corporates, financial actors, consumers, and law firms, must play their part in driving the transition to sustainability. Law firms are businesses, just like any other. As such, they must be aware of the externalities and hidden costs of their activities, and how a strategy to ensure that their business is sustainable in the long run. In addition, because of the nature of their advisory activities, law firms must be ready to accompany clients on their own journeys towards sustainability and help them to have a positive social impact. But what's in it for law firms themselves? In the next 45 minutes, 1 hour, our speakers will hopefully, and I'm pretty sure, will give their perspective and answer. But from my side, the defensive answer is that if law firms fail to embrace the environmental, social, and governance, the ESG agenda, they will lose their license to operate. ESG is not merely a fashion, which I still hear it. It's not a fashion. It demands a profound transformation of business in general. And if law firms do not accept this, they will find themselves unable to assist their clients, not in the long run, but even in the short run. The more proactive answer is that ESG presents new business opportunities and innovative ways of doing business that law firms can capitalize on to gain a competitive advantage in their own market. Today, we are going to speak about ESG, sustainability for law firms, and B-Corps. But as I said, I don't believe we can speak about B-Corp without mentioning perhaps the most famous one, Patagonia, the outdoor retailer from Ventura in California. As I said, this is an ad from 2011. It's a pretty famous ad. It's a Black Friday ad. Black Friday is about consumerism. It's about buying for cheap. And what does Patagonia do? They say, don't buy this jacket. You can imagine that sales went up, because if you tell people that they shouldn't buy anything, the opposite happens. I will not go into detail that even this ad and this message is fully aligned with what Patagonia stands for. And that makes it a very interesting company. And what you can say about Patagonia, it's a purpose-driven company versus profit-driven companies. In the next, I will say a few more things in the 2 more slides. But we have, as Dino already mentioned, with AIJA, we have a board member of B-Lab, and with Kat, we have Mish Kondereya. She will say a bit more on being a B-Corp. And Emiliano, his firm is in the process of becoming a B-Corp. So for those who are less familiar with ESG, ESG stands for sustainable environment, social responsibility, and good governance. It takes into account factors. Traditionally, it comes from the investment world. And investors increasingly take into account these elements, these factors in taking investment decisions. And how do law firms got involved? Law firms are not known as front runner in many aspects in terms of sustainability, in embracing technology. Our industry, our sector is somewhat traditional. But over the last couple of years, law firms have become increasingly aware of their special role and responsibility. And when it comes to sustainability, law firms would be best described as reactive. And this trickle-down effect picture shows how most law firms got involved. And what you can add to this picture is not only the trickle-down effect, but on the side that all those, the investors, the corporates, law firms, as you are also are being put under pressure by employees, by clients, by NGO, by society. But driven by financial performance and societal pressure, investment firms are increasingly integrating ESG factors into their investment criteria. Consequently, corporates are forced by their shareholders, investment funds, to integrate ESG into their own corporate strategies. And they are further encouraged, as I said, to do so by consumer behavior, growing activist action, and new norms and regulations. And these developments require legal service providers that have a profound understanding of ESG threats, opportunities, and challenges that lie ahead. So law firms have a vital role to play on this journey. First, as a legal advisor in guiding their clients through ESG transformation, and second, as an independent business actor. We have a next question. Anna, can I ask you to? So, corporates are increasingly under pressure by employees, local residents, consumers, investors, media. And in the near past, and we see it increasingly, law firms are also being put under pressure by activist groups, but also by their own employees. My question, and I wrote down the group of participants, viewers of this webinar are primarily small, mid-sized firms from Europe. I think we all would be very curious, are you facing pressure? What kind of pressure do you face? Question 4, as Dino would say, we give you a couple of seconds. So, there it is. It's more than I expected, to be honest. That you have, what you see is that almost almost half of you, your clients, that you see that your clients experience this kind of pressure. And more than a fifth, more than 20% experience from, and that already takes into account that, and that's interesting, I believe. It's not only the big international firms, but also the European small, mid-sized firms experience an internal pressure, and at least you have internal discussions. Interesting. So we were pretty sure that we had an interesting topic for this AIJA workshop, but only this question and the answers already confirmed it. The first interesting speaker I want to give the floor is Alisa. Alisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, everyone. And again, thank you for inviting me to this very interesting webinar. I wanted to just start out before diving into our specific practice to speak about what we're talking about. So Robert talked about a little bit ESG and sort of the pressure we feel towards developing a sustainable law firm toolkit or a sustainable legal strategy. And I wanted to just maybe clarify also the topic and say there are two main types of ways that you can implement a sustainable legal strategy. As a small business or small law firm owner, I can say that we have a lot of hats we have to wear, and sometimes the CSR policies are maybe not on our agenda or priorities because we're focusing on so many different aspects of managing a law firm when we're a smaller boutique law firm. But I can say that there is, most of the time, there is a real need and maybe even a need to just verbalize and write down what we already do, and maybe highlight and see what we are already doing and show others what we already have put into place. And that can also be a strategy. For the type 1 type of legal strategies, I would call this the CSR policies in the management of the law firm. So this would mean in practicalities that the law firm would be choosing to have a CSR policy, choosing to implement ways in which they can reduce negative impact or eventually generate positive impact for the society, for stakeholders, for the environment. This type of policy does require a budget and does require human resources to implement, which smaller law firms may or may not have. And this idea of CSR policies for the type 1 law firm must go beyond the classical pro bono programs that we have, almost all of us have put into place. And it really needs to address what we call the major negative impacts of a specific law firm, which can be different from another. And that's where we need to have what we call a materiality assessment, or we assess specifically in our context, what are our major areas of improvement, whether it's environmental, whether it's social, and to really focus on 2 or 3 main objectives rather than 15 or 20. And then also this idea of what we call in France, la raison d'être, the purpose of a law firm. This also, these different objectives need to be anchored in the overall strategy and the overall objective. So that's the first way in which we can have a sustainable legal strategy, is in implementing the way in which we manage the law firm. So regardless of the clients, regardless of our main activity, regardless of our specific domain of expertise. The second way that we can have a sustainable legal strategy is to focus our core business, so our actual activity and our clients, on sustainability. And this is my case, and I'm going to speak about this briefly. And in the second type of law firm, the law firm in the beginning, in the creation of the law firm, sort of similar to a social business, they're creating the law firm not simply to share profits or to maximize profit sharing or maximize their clients and the number of clients they have, but it's really to maximize their impact, to help and to assist high impact, positive impact companies, whether it's social enterprises, nonprofits, B-Corps, benefit corporations, mission-led companies, whatever it is. They have a real purpose which goes beyond practicing law, which goes beyond necessarily managing the law firm, but really focusing on the activity, the primary activity, to have purpose. And so in this case, we would have to refuse work. And I know that's that's definitely a big word to use to say that we have to refuse clients. But when we have a strategy for type 2 law firms, we have to refuse clients that maybe work in industries that would be harmful. So maybe oil and gas, maybe the major different internet companies or polluters. And this strategy to refuse clients can have a negative impact on our business model, on our profitability. But because we have this mission-driven purpose, it's for us at least, and I will talk about it a little bit later, it makes so much sense. So we are now focusing exclusively or almost exclusively on these companies. And this, so as a consequence, normally this type of activity or this purpose-driven law firm is more of a smaller boutique firm because, well, obviously, we cannot grow if we have to refuse clients. And so that's another choice that we have made. Again, it's also possible to do both. One is not independent of the other. And ideally, it would be great to do both as well. So now the next slide, please. So to give you just a very quick example of what a purpose-driven law firm could look like, where I wanted to use an example for our law firm. So AIJA Avocat is a boutique French law firm based in Paris. So we've been in existence for 8 years. And we focus exclusively on 4 benefit companies, nonprofit companies, hybrid companies, basically any client who comes to me and says, I want to make a difference. I want to make a change. I want to make a concrete change in this world. What can I do? And that's what we'll accept the client matter. And we focused our main client base on 3 pillars in our legal strategy. First is providing quality legal services at an affordable price. So as you probably may know or not, the social enterprise sector is very large in France and in continental Europe, and also this emerging social entrepreneurship. But of course, because it's emerging, there's less maybe money or less the ability to pay for lawyers or high legal services. So in order to have a sustainable law firm in this area, we've chosen to reduce our prices. And as a consequence, we've chosen to reduce our overhead expenses as well. So we do not have a large law firm in the most expensive part of Paris. We have chosen to be it's an incubator that has a zero waste policy that is that corresponds with our values. We have chosen to not hire a lot of lawyers. We've chosen instead to create a network of independent lawyers. And then the second pillar is to train the next generation of leaders. So instead of focusing only on providing services towards clients, we also have a training for lawyers who are interested in the sector, and also for entrepreneurs, and also for our clients. And that's really important for us because we have this goal to have a real change in society. And in order to make change, you need to have actions that are concrete, and you need to train people and to raise awareness on certain subjects, on how can we be the change that we want to see in the world. And finally, we wanted to be a pioneer and an activist. So we work with government institutions, we work with accelerator programs, we work with the major actors in the impact sector, and we try to create new legal frameworks. We've helped the government implement a new legal framework in 2014 and 2019 on social enterprises, and also on mission-led companies. And also we speak at conferences and want to promote as much as possible our clients, but also on sustainability. And then finally, if you just want to choose the, go ahead and you can go to the next slide. Next slide. And finally, we also created a network of lawyers in 2018. So we created the law firm in 2014, 8 years ago. And since then, we've assisted more than 600 companies with their needs. And with the network, we have offered more than 500 hours per year in pro bono work. And so the idea of creating this network was, first of all, to provide pro bono legal services to high impact companies who may not have the necessary means to hire a lawyer, but also to create synergy between lawyers to promote social enterprise law and to train lawyers in this sector. And those are our sort of high impact legal strategies that we've chosen to put into place because of our purpose, because of our raison d'être, as we say in France. And then just to maybe finish, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. Yes, so these are the clients we work with. So just to finish in this last slide, which I think could maybe give you a couple of examples, the question you want to ask now is, well, why do I need to create a CSR strategy if I'm a small law firm? I see that there's a need potentially, but maybe I don't have the budget, maybe I don't have the desire, maybe I don't have the motivation. The first question you need to ask in this case is why, right? Why do you want to create a CSR strategy? What is your purpose? What is the purpose, first of all, of the law firm? And then what do I want to do to implement a CSR strategy that corresponds with my purpose? And so creating 2 or 3 objectives, ideally, like I said, in the main areas of your major negative impact, or how you can have a more positive impact. And really to promote the real change is I would say the most important action plan. So putting in place KPIs, specific KPIs that you can look at over the year and see if you've implemented certain of the objectives. So for the type 1 companies or the type 1 law firms, most of the larger law firms, I would say, or most of the law firms that put in place a legal strategy based on CSR practices in the way they manage the law firm, there are 3 main areas, like Robert was saying: the environmental, social, and governance. When I did a brief research on the different policies that online and the CSR strategies, I've noticed that most of the sustainability objectives are really focused on gender equality, employees, and encouraging work-life balance, pro bono work. For the environmental, it's really focused on renewable energies, e-files rather than printing, and public transportation, so remote working. And then also in basically measuring your carbon footprint, trying to raise awareness on global warming. But I do see a lack in the governance part of ESG, and I wanted to just maybe throw that out as maybe a topic for later discussion. But the inclusion of associates in profit sharing schemes, the stakeholder share meetings, eventually client surveys, or how can we include associates and all of the employees in the governance and in sharing also the profit of the law firm. I think this is a way we can also improve and have a positive impact, because I know that there is a lot of difficulties finding a work-life balance as a lawyer, given our profession. So this is I would say a main topic for discussion. And then for us, at least, we've already basically put in place a CSR strategy just by the way we are. So because we have a smaller law firm, it's much easier, I think, to put in place a CSR strategy based on our purpose. So making sure that we have the labels necessary, helping clients to have labels in order to create more visibility for their impact, publishing articles, having work-life balance as well, choosing the offices that we want to work in, doing low bono work as well, providing the network to respond to different needs in the sector. And so I guess in all of this, if I could just leave you with one last point, maybe to think about, and also to encourage as well, the legal sustainable legal strategy would be to not only look at what law firms are doing, these type 1 and type 2 law firms, but also look at what the national bar associations are doing. And as an example, and I'll finish with this example, is in 2013, on a European level, the Council of European Bars have been working on a CSR charter for law firms. And in France, the National Bar Association has adopted a socially responsible law firm charter, and it was actually revised in 2021. They focus on 5 pillars, and I think this is a great way, or maybe a best practice also, we can choose to put into place, or maybe ask our national bar associations to put into place, to say what kind of action can we take on a national level to encourage CSR practices. And then we recently have received word that the National French Bar Association wants to put in place a label, basically to have a label to recognize law firms that are more responsible. I think label is a really important way to also distinguish certain law firms who are actually putting a CSR charter in place and putting concrete actions in place, rather than having a marketing strategy. So thank you, and I'm really looking forward to having a discussion on these different topics.
Thank you, Alisa. Thank you. It's interesting. I recognize it. I look forward to also to have a discussion later within the panel, and to hear the views from our viewers, participants. Kat, can I give the floor to you? Mishkondorea is much bigger than Alisa's firm, but you have your own challenges.
Yeah, thank you, Robert, and thank you, Alyssa. It's really interesting to hear from the other end of the scale that it's very different challenges. We're all trying to achieve the same objective, but we obviously have different approaches because of the context that we're working in. So it's fascinating. So I know that Emiliano is going to come on to talk more specifically about their journey through B-Corp. So I thought I would focus a little bit more on the stuff outside of certifications. So if you decide not to go down a particular certification route, for example, B-Corp, or if it's not right for you, I wanted to talk a little bit about the things that you might want to think about. And Alyssa has touched on some of those already, which is really helpful. And I thought while I do that, I would just talk through a little bit about the process that we've been through at Mishcon. I would start off by saying that we're by no means perfect. we may be big, but that doesn't mean we do things well all the time. As I'll say at the end, I think it's really important to acknowledge that. That's something that I've learned since I've started this role. So if you think a certification is maybe not for you, or maybe you've got the certification, you're wondering what to do next, the slide sets out the kind of key questions that I would be asking myself. And so I come at this from the internal management. So Alyssa's type 1 in her slides. So how do I make Mishcon de Reya a sustainable firm going forward? And of course, that falls across the whole range of ESG, not just, as Alyssa says, not just the traditional S, the pro bono side of things, and not just the slightly more on vogue, trendy E bit, but going across the full spectrum. So the key question, the first question, the why. So why are we all here? Why do we want to be a purposeful business? Yes, we're law firms. We're here to act in the best interest of our clients. We're here to make money, but why do we exist? And one of the reasons I came to Mishcon, I have a background in other bigger city firms. One of the reasons that attracted me to Mishcon, because they did have a really good articulation of why they exist beyond, we want to act for our clients, we want to make money. And that really runs through the firm, from managing partner down to, every trainee, every solicitor apprentice that we have. And that is that we want to use the opportunities in the world to help our clients. It's not just about giving them legal advice. It's about looking at new opportunities. It's about being innovative. It's about looking at global challenges and helping them navigate that. So having that purpose, I think, is really important. It allows you to hang the rest of the structure of how you want to approach this off that purpose statement. It means that everybody in the firm can identify with the thing that you're aiming to achieve. And from my perspective in my job, getting engagement across the firm, that statement is fundamentally important. So that would be my starting point. And that's not an easy thing to do. It requires quite difficult conversations sometimes. Robert alluded to the fact that we're quite a traditional profession, and certainly lots of our lawyers are still quite traditional, but we need to start challenging some of those traditional views, and asking that question is a great way to start people thinking about a little bit broader. Why do we exist? Why are we here? What footprint do we want to leave on the world? So that's the first thing. I think the second thing then for me, which is again incredibly important if you want to try and embed this in your business, is values. So you can have your why statement, why we exist, but how are you going to do that? And for us at Mishcon, again, values was something that maybe we didn't articulate it in the way that you might do now, that people talk about it in the kind of with the ESG lens. But from the day Mishcon was, set up in Brixton as a one-man band, Brixton's a part of South London, for those of you who don't know, these core values were there from day one. And they were always, and they haven't changed actually, which I think is really telling. And they do genuinely ring as true today as they did then. And I think if you ask anybody in the firm if they could list the core values, they would be able to do that. And that's not because we've tried to manufacture something. And I think this thing around values is incredibly difficult to do. It's quite intangible sometimes, but having a set of values that everyone is signed up to and everyone believes in can only help you create a culture within your firms, within your practices that help to drive this. And that's probably, you know, I say it's quite intangible. I think the elements that make it up are probably your people, the way that they interact, how they treat each other, really importantly, the ideas that are supported. Just yesterday, I was speaking to our executive chair, and he said, you know, part of the reason why he loves Mishcon, part of the reason why he thinks we are a purpose-driven firm is because anyone can put forward an idea, and ideas are supported regardless of where they come from, because innovation is one of the key reasons we exist. Anyone can have an idea and anyone can go to him with it, and he will consider it and think about it and take it seriously. So having those values from all the way through the firm, from the very top right to the bottom, is really, really important. And I'm sure the next one, I'm sure Emiliano will touch on, and that is a constitutional commitment. So if you become a B-Corp, you have to make certain changes to your constitutional documents. And because we've been through that process, certainly we did that. So the objects of our business now read not just to be a financially sustainable law firm, but to have a positive impact on society and environment. Now, that's a really nice high-level statement. What does it do? I think it's, for me, really helpful as something that you can refer to. People in the firm certainly feel really proud that the partners have laid down in writing in our LLP deed that we are committed to this. And I think it's another one of these tools that you can use to start to really drive a culture through an organization. So how do you then deliver on that commitment? So if you've had your purpose, you've had those conversations, you've started to articulate why it is that you do what you do, the values that you want to bring in delivering that, you've got your constitutional commitment. How do you deliver that as a firm? And certainly a firm as big as Mishcon is now, and it's growing very quickly, that's one of our major challenges, is how do you then start to genuinely deliver that? And again, Alyssa's touched on this, and Robert touched on it at the beginning. I think for us, there are 4 ways that we think that we can start to deliver on this. First is the way that you operate as a business. So are we a good corporate citizen? Do we have genuine ambition to be a great employer that people want to work for, that attracts diverse talent regardless of background? Do we have a responsible, sustainable supply chain? Do we have a credible climate change strategy? All of those things start to build up the DNA of what your business stands for. So that's my first pillar, if you like. Secondly, and maybe less excitingly, but no, equally important, is the operations. So our buildings, you know, it's really interesting, the approach that Alyssa has taken to their offices. We don't quite have the luxury, because we have so many people. We have, at the moment at least, we have to have a physical presence, but you know, we're looking at the way that we can reduce our environmental footprint of those buildings. Certainly post-pandemic, that's raised some really interesting conversations around hybrid working and whether we need to think completely differently about the way that we use our buildings. So all of those operational things, again, really important. There's obviously the traditional CSR element as well. So pro bono is incredibly important for us. We don't see it as the only answer, it's part of the answer. But making sure that we have a really credible pro bono program that genuinely delivers positive impact is really important, as well as our volunteering and fundraising programs. And again, that's the slightly more traditional things that you would associate with what used to be called CSR, now under the lens of ESG. But most interestingly for me, and again, Robert and Alyssa have touched on this, our work is our key delivery mechanism. We're a professional services industry. the main product, if we can put it that way, that we deliver is our work, whether that's pro bono work or fee generating work. And something that we at Mishcon are thinking really carefully about at the moment is how can we start to measure the impact of the work that we do, whether that's positive or negative. Some of it I'm sure will be negative, but so that we can start to learn what the impact of what we are doing on the world is, so that we can do better. And that's a really interesting challenge. And there's some quite interesting scientific approaches to how you might be able to track back the impact of the work that you do on your own emissions, for example, which I think is really, really fascinating. But I think unless we take into account our work, we're missing an enormous part of what we as a business, the impact that we as a business are having. So for me, that's of those 4 things I've mentioned, for me, that's the most interesting. Next slide, please. Oh, we're on the next slide. Okay. Sorry, can you go back one? Perfect, thank you. So then I just thought I would touch on some of the things that I have learned in the last year around, if that's the way that we deliver it practically, how do you implement some of this stuff, and how do you get this genuinely embedded? So it's not just something that you talk about at a board level conversation. It's not just something that my team is focused on, but it's something that runs through the whole business. And for us as a firm, we've always been quite focused on technology and innovation, and we've had an incubator lab for a number of years, and so data is always our go-to. And increasingly that's going to become more and more important. You know, our clients are asking for data, our suppliers are asking for data. You may have seen that we're considering an IPO later this year, and so we will have to be producing lots of that data going forwards. So for me, it's one of the key ways that we will get this implemented in an organization that is quite big, you know, and in some, when you're working in a big organization, sadly, some things do have to be a little bit more structured that might be fun, but sometimes you do have to have that structure around it. So for me, be really clear that you've got really clear targets. What we've gone through the full ESG portfolio of Mishcon, and we've set specific targets against everything that we want to achieve. And we're holding individuals accountable across the business for each of those targets, whether that be an emissions target, whether that be what IT we buy, whether that be how many bundles we produce in our litigation division. You know, I could list hundreds, but we've gone through that process in quite a rigorous way. And we are now making sure that we have the data to be able to measure against those targets. And for me, that's the key point, is how do we measure? How can we evidence that we're doing this? That's how I can have conversations with people that demonstrate progress, that demonstrate that what they're doing is important. And the final point here, that has to translate again through your staff. And something we're looking at the moment is incentives, because I think that's not something that law firms have looked at particularly. You know, if you talk to anyone in a bank, certainly the law firms in London that I've spoken to don't have anything in place in the way that you might do if you were one of the big consulting firms or one of the big banks. You know, we don't have balanced scorecards, you know, that mean that for a partner, they have their remuneration is equally based on their impact as it is on the number of fees that they've generated. So things like that, again, is something that we're thinking about. And I know we're really short on time, so I've probably mentioned the things that are on my last slide, but just as a kind of a reminder, you know, at a really high level, be really honest with yourself. Like, no one is perfect, and it's important to say where you are so you can demonstrate progress. I think law firms are very risk-averse places as a general rule, and we should be honest and say, actually, we've got quite a lot to do. Be authentic, because if it's not authentic to your organization, it won't work. You know, you need people to believe in it all the way through the organization, and be specific so that you can measure and you can keep track of how you're doing.
Thank you, Kat. And both Kat and Alisa, you elaborated on purpose, on pro bono. We have less than 50 minutes, but I really want to go to two two quick surveys, polls on purpose and pro bono to see how our participants are doing around formulating a purpose and their pro bono work. Anna, can you? Yes. So purpose, you can also say, is meaning. It's the cause for which a business exists. Alisa had a very nice French term for it. It responds to the question why. While it is easy to describe what a firm does, as well as how it conducts its activities, it's often harder to articulate why it is useful. So on purpose, a few seconds, also given the time. So what does this say? 40% of the participants has no specific purpose formulated, but more than half is either considering formulating a purpose or already has a purpose and is living up to that purpose. I would be curious what the answer would be after this workshop. I think the 40% goes down to 0. The next question, please. So on pro bono work, both Kat and Alisa said a couple of interesting things on pro bono work. Many firms do pro bono work. I'm curious what your firm is doing that around this. Yeah, it's almost an hygienic type of ESG and sustainability for many law firms. Another few seconds to give your answer. So no formal pro bono program in place, 40% and 60% has a pro bono, you do pro bono matters, but it's not embedded in an actual program with guidelines. Is it interesting? Is this an interesting outcome? Perhaps not surprising. I need to give it a second thought what this says. But it's not about me. It's about Emiliano and his firm that is in the process of becoming a B-Corp. Emiliano.
Thank you, Robert, and thanks a lot to Alisa and Kat for their insight. I mean, our story and I mean my focus on this process where we've been starting a year ago, and we're about to end soon, it should be certified in the upcoming months. Actually, it's quite peculiar, at least in the Italian context, because we have to highlight that currently there's no Italian law firm certified as B Corp. But I mean, the reason why we started to approach this this path actually has different root causes, because I mean, one of the reasons why I joined this firm was that when we had probably the first practice dedicated on, at the time was called Charities and Social Enterprise, where we actually started working professionally and full-time on assisting third sector entities and social enterprise. And towards the years, we developed our practice into what is now impact and sustainability for companies. I mean, supporting companies that are willing to embed a different approach within their business models. And so I mean, one of the reasons why we looked at the B-Corp certification was a matter of purpose, because we were working on these topics as lawyers, but we realized that while we were assisting clients being change makers in the way they were pursuing their goals as entrepreneurs, we had to be the first one embedding this approach within our business model. So this is why we having a strong department, I mean, a strong practice with already 10 years experience in the field. We thought it was somehow automatic to face this challenge more, and to also let's say push the whole firm. We are a full service firm, so we're not dedicated entirely to this topic, but we have all other kind of legal assistance in our firm. So we proposed, and it was not an immediate step, I mean, to take everybody on board. So as I said, like, there are different reasons why we end to this idea, and we started the process. And one of them was also the market, because we started for both a matter of how we position the firm, being identified as a firm with an expertise on this field, but also for a matter of selection from the clients, because we're every day we're starting to get more and more requests and surveys about how do we embed sustainability within our model. So I mean, the B-Corp was we did it as a first try. We went through their B-Impact assessment to see how it works, because we were supporting clients towards the process. But then we decided to make this major step on ourselves. And so if you can move to the next slide, please. So it is not, because we're still in the process, and Kat touched already a few challenges. It was not an easy task, because at the beginning we found it a very, very useful exercise, which I mean, we advise clients and other colleagues willing to approach this phase, I mean, to go through the B-Impact assessment as a sort of a preliminary assessment in any case, I mean, to have an idea. And it made, it was very much helpful in terms of helping us formalizing, well, identifying which was our current level of commitment, in terms of evaluating which was the real impact generated, positive and negative, of course, generated by our work. I mean, about the way we approach, internally and towards the clients, our profession. So it was definitely a useful tool for this to also to increase our consciousness about what sustainability is probably never, like in these days, a trend and something that it's sometimes is perceived more as a trendsetter than a real commitment. So we sometimes thought we were doing things in a proper way, but then going through this assessment, we thought that we should have a formal commitment to get it official, to get it communicated, to get employees and all different let's say levels of the people that is working with us involved. But also I have to say that the B-Impact assessment, and it's probably one of the reasons why there are no law firms, and we are keen to become the first one in Italy that are still certified, is that the type of questions, the type of survey of assessment that you go through for the certification, it's not always very much adaptable to the work we do. because just to give you an example, we have a deontological code as lawyers in Italy that we have to comply with, which comprise a lot of duties and commitment that we have to respect by and they are imposed by the law and for the profession, and so it's hard sometimes to make, let's say, emerge what is a commitment that we decided to add on top of what we do in our ordinary business, in the way we do our profession, and of course it's a difficult challenge, because Elisa touched a key point regarding the selection of clients, because of course we're doing a hybrid. We're trying to apply a hybrid model, because we're not selecting clients, but we're collaborating with clients, making them aware that this is the way we want to work, this is the way we want to achieve our goals, which are also business goals, and we are engaging them on our calls, which is something that it's I think it's producing results, because we're starting to become easily targeted as a sustainable law firm, which is a matter of positioning also on the market. So if you go on the next slide, please. So the one of the things that it's also I think it emerged quite clearly from Kat tips. I mean, when we started to talk about getting a B-Corp certification, some partners were immediately engaged, some other were reluctant, some other were not against, but they didn't really see the point of doing that. And in general, there was not a clear perception of how strongly the firm should have changed the approach towards I would say each and every part of his ordinary life, from managing our carbon footprint and our energy efficiency in the buildings. We have 6 offices in Italy. Sometimes some of them are new buildings, some other are ancient, historical buildings. So with all the difficulties that you can imagine, and it was an exercise that most of the people could not perceive at the beginning. So we immediately realized that before even submitting our certification process, we had to embed our mission and our strategy, and it's actually what we suggest to all our clients we work with. I mean, to identify our goals, identify our missions, and get it formalized. So we adopted a sustainability model that embed different policies that goes from pro bono, but of course that entails many other issues, including D&I and human rights respect. And we created a sustainability committee, on which I'm part, and which gathers the widest possible range of representatives, from partners to employees, from geographical, from of course gender balance, and we made it a very active committee, which is proposing, is involving our board on many different decisions. So we really tried, and we are actually succeeding in making the sustainability approach, let's say the backbone of the way we approach our business. So that is actually one of the things through which we realized the importance of being certified as a B-Corp, and to which we really gained the commitment and the involvement and the passionate will of most of the firm. So just the last slide, I say, yeah. So as I said, like these which I tried to squeeze in a very few minutes. I think it's a two-folded process, because it helps you out getting your values and your principle stronger, because you it's not a matter of adopting a piece of paper that you make and you leave asleep in a closet. It's something that really makes everybody feels the importance of improving. So it's something that, for example, the models, the sustainability model which was adopted during the first lockdown, it's constantly adapted and updated, integrated. So all the initiatives that we are putting in place are actually, it's a work in process that we are seeing, and I hope that the final points that we received in the certification will take this into account. That all these efforts are becoming concrete towards let's say a certification that it most likely will most likely be achieved in the upcoming future. So I would say that it's I definitely not consider it as an ending point. It's the certification for us. It's like probably a recognition of the efforts done and of the commitment that we've been gaining towards the years. And but it's I would consider it as a new step for a new way of working for the whole firm, which I hope will inspire other firms around Italy and Europe as well.
Thank you, Emiliano. It was almost like a rush at the last few minutes. We already got 5 minutes more from AIJA. There are no questions from participants, but to end this, to have a last few words, Kat, Alisa, and Emiliano, if you and also mindful of the time, if you need to say in one word or few words, what is the main driver for what do you believe is the main driver for sustainability for law firms? Kat.
Oh, you've come to me first. I haven't had a chance to think.
Sorry.
Main driver for sustainability. So for us, it's about opportunity. It's about helping. We don't work for institutional corporate clients. We have entrepreneurs who want to take the opportunity that this new lens is giving them, and that aligns with our values. I think that's what I would say.
Alisa, the main driver?
The main driver, I would say, is to implement change, to bring about the economy of tomorrow, which is a more responsible capitalism. And to do that, we need to have actors in the economy that are changing. And I think that's why what drives me, at least, is to know that I'm helping actors for systemic change that will be sustainable, because we'll be able to, sustainability, what does it mean? It simply means to be able to survive the change and to grow with the change. And we are in change, we're in transformation right now. So I would say yes, to be more, to provide change and to provide the services to the change makers and the companies of tomorrow's economy.
Thank you. And Emiliano, what do you think?
Yeah, my last word would be well, which I'm pretty convinced about. It's radicality. I mean, it's sustainability. It's becoming an empty box in many circumstances. So we need to be very, radical in terms of respecting the commitments. And Kat was mentioning impact measurement. I mean, just being ready to produce effects that are measurable and they are actually making the change that Alisa is mentioning. But if you're not radical and ready to get some challenges, then it's it will not be a successful exercise, I would say.
It's no option to ignore.
No.
Thank you all. Mindful of the time, and I also see that the number of participants they're leaving us. So on behalf of myself, all the speakers, Dino, thank you for organizing this. And we already had a very quick chat. There will be a follow-up. AIJA is not aware of it yet, but there will be a follow-up.
One point of hope for everyone is that in the years studying sustainability, I have not encountered, you may contradict me, somebody that defines himself an expert of sustainability. Is so wide and diversified that it's only a journey. It's not a destination. So we are all learning. We are all applying our best competencies to go in the right direction. And read Robert's book, follow us, follow Alisa, Kat, Emiliano's work, be attentive, look around. It's not an easy journey, but regardless of your size, there is something we can do, and we have no option than doing this. So looking forward to see you for the next episodes of this journey. Thank you all.
Thank
Thank you all.